Hi, everyone. It's Kim. Thanks for joining me. I have been wanting to make a pop up book for a long time, and with Karen Burniston's pop up dies, that made the process fairly simple. And then I discovered the new mouse family designed by Josette for Elizabeth Craft Designs, so I knew I had my characters. And then after listening to some Christmas songs on the radio, I knew I had discovered my theme. So let me show you the little mini album or mini book that I created using pop-up dies and the new mouse family from Elizabeth Craft Designs. And this is going to be a visit from St. Nicholas. So let's go through the book and then I will share with you all of the dies I used and a couple of tips that I discovered along the way. So, a visit from St. Nicholas. "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. And as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. And he spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to a sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." And that is the end of the pop-up book. So I had a great time making this. I did spend a lot of time planning. So let me share with you what I used to make the book and kind of how I started this whole process. I printed off the poem and I split it up by the different paragraphs and then, or the different verses, and kind of wrote to the side my thought of what I was going to do with the dies and how to decorate it. Before I even started, I spent a little time planning this. Otherwise, I would just be stuck like, what am I going to do for this page? What am I going to do for that page? So that's how I started. Now, I'm not going to talk about the binding and the cover much because I'm going to be honest, I should have spent more time planning that. I love to make mini albums, but the pages in this need to fold flat, lay flat in order for the pop-ups to work. So that was my challenge, and I'll be honest, I had it put together. I couldn't fold it flat. I basically took the cover off and the binding and kind of had to start over. So I need to spend more time on that. So I really am not going to share with you what I did because let's just face it, it could be improved. But let me tell you what I used for the cover and the pages. And even if you think, well, you know what, I'm not going to make a pop up book. When I look at some of these, this is probably one of my most favorite. This page, this 2-page spread was actually fairly easy. And I think this would be a great card, the inside of a holiday card. Even if you're not doing the whole theme, you could omit the verses here and just put a sentiment. So a couple of these, I think, oh, that would just be a cool card, the inside of a card, without putting it into a little book. So let's start on the outside. The cat here is stamped, and that's a Lavinia stamp. This cat is called Noof, and I love him. He's a big cat. I did kind of have to give him a haircut since I trimmed him out, and there's no way I could go around all these little individual hairs. So he did get kind of a trim, but you could still see that he's nice and furry, and I love him. He's a good size, and he kind of has an attitude. And then we're going to meet our mouse family here very soon. The circle, the door to the mouse house is a nesting die, the circle nesting die from Karen Burniston. And then I did go through my stash. So I'm going to show you some old dies. You may say, well, I don't have those. But I bet if you look in your stash, there's plenty that you have that you can use as well. So the font here is the typewriter font. I use the upper and lower case from Tim Holtz. And then these little pieces, we're going to look at the die. Those came from here next. So on the inside here, my first page, let's look at the fireplace. This is all from Karen Burniston. And there is the main fireplace pop-up that I used. And then the fireplace extras 1 and 2. So my stockings, the wreath, the firewood. So I just kind of mixed the extras 1 and 2 for the fireplace into this scene. And I had fun just decorating. And I pretty much completed my 2-page spreads before I even thought about putting them together because it was a lot easier to do it when it's flat and I can move it around than it's in the book. There's a few things I added later, but for the most part, it was decorated before I put the book together. My little rug here is from the Labels Crosshatch. So I did make use of a lot of nesting dies. So pull those out if you have some nesting dies. And then for the rest of the inside of this page, over here, my candles came from one of Tim's new vault dies. This is the Vault Festive Wreath. And then for my garland on this page, and then here on the outside of my cover, that's from an old die from Tim. In case you have it, this is Village Christmas Time. But again, the wreaths, the garland, there's plenty of dies out there. So check out what you've got in your stash. And then 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So here's one thing that I learned. I had this in the book, and then I thought, oh, it won't be a big deal to put this on. Well, it wasn't, except I needed to get everything straight. And it was, if I kept it like this, it was too bouncy. So I thought, well, I'll straighten it out. Well, then I came like, oh, I'm going to crush my fireplace. So I should have put this on before I put all the pages together. But, I'll know next time. This is where I got into some really old dies. So the Twas is from a quick cuts set called Beauty Queen. And for those of you who maybe go to thrift stores, I found this at the thrift store for like $5.99, I think it was. And even though it's old, it still works, and they're huge letters. So don't think there's something that's just too old to use in your stash. Pull it out and use it. And I was thrilled I had those great big letters. And then the night before Christmas is from an old Tim font. And this is cutout script. And I think I got this at Tuesday morning. So, again, nothing is too old. Look what you've got and use it up if you can. For the next page, let's meet our mice. First, their bed is using the stocking pop-up. So my little girl, she's the one that can crawl in and out of the covers. They're using the stocking pop-up die. And then this little guy, he's sleeping. His bed is on the other side of the pop-up. So let's meet our little mice. There's a mouse family. And the first die, these little guys come from the Little Mouse set. And so you can see what they look like. And then they do have some clothes. And there's a whole collection. So on some of my mice, I can mix and match. But these are the little guys. So we'll start with them. And their clothes came from their set. And then she's got a little bitty teddy bear there. And we'll look at that set. That's from a Karen Burniston set. So we will look at that. And this garland is also from Karen Burniston, one of her border sets. It is from Christmas Borders 1. So then on to our next page and the next pop-up. Now we've got a big mouse we're going to take a look at. The pop-up I used for this one is the postage pop-up. So that's what my guy is on here. You can see the whole pop-up. And I just made it out of the same paper as the background, so it didn't stick out and become real obvious. Let's meet the big mice here. So Papa Mouse, here's the big mouse, and they have a head-on view and a side view. And it's the same way with the little mice too, the little mouse. Head-on and a side view. So this time I used the side view. Again, these guys come with clothes. And there's a couple other sets. So we'll take a look at two of them here to dress him. And so I dressed him using the clothes in the Big Mouse set. And the hat, the cap, though, came from this set, the fall accessories. So I needed a cap that would work for a side view. So that's what I used for this one. And I used this one, again, we'll see this cap again here shortly. My window is from Spellbinders. It was a good sized window, so that's why I decided to use this one. And it is the Vista View window. So easy to cut out, and then I could put my scene behind it. And that moon is from Tim Holtz's. This is one of my favorite dies, Moonlight. So it's the smaller moon in this set that I used. And the Santa, we looked at him before. This is an old die from Frantic Stamper, but he's a nice small Santa. But there's so many Santas and sleighs. I think Tim Holtz's Vault series from this year, he's got a Santa and a sleigh that would have worked. And then here's a really old staircase, the classic staircase from Memory Box. Again, I had so much fun just pulling out old dies that I knew that I could use for this. And the cheese comes, that's part of the Big Mouse set. So that's one of the little accessory pieces in that. So my next pop-up is the only one that is not Karen Burniston. And I knew I had this, and I knew this is what I wanted my sleigh to look like. This is from Concord and 9th. And it just says pop-up base. And you can see how simple this is. And I know I've seen tutorials online using a base like this. So this is the one that I did not use. That's Karen. I'm sure I could have maybe figured out how to use some of Karen's dies, but it was just easier for me to use that one die. And then I did make it a little bit longer. I basically cut the main die, cut it again, cut it in half, and then attach two of them, whether you can see that there or not, just to make it a little longer to accommodate Santa and his reindeer. So my sleigh, I knew I had the sleigh and it was a good size from Karen. This is a sleigh pop-up. I didn't use it as a pop-up. I just used the sleigh by itself, so it's just one layer. It's not the pop-up from the die. It accommodated my smaller mouse. So little mouse is the one I used in the sleigh, but I needed to have Santa's clothes. And there is a set called Christmas Accessories, but this is for the big mouse. However, I was able still to use the main pieces and trim them down. The arms are actually from the big mouse, but you wouldn't know that if I hadn't told you. And this little hat, Santa's hat, was just way too big. So the little hat is from the fall accessories. So this is what I use. I thought, you know what, I can use this smaller hat that fits his head and just make it the colors of Santa's cap and modify that a little bit. So that's what I did for the little mouse Santa. I also knew I needed a fairly good size reindeer. All of my deer that I had, my deer die cuts, are too small, but I knew I had this one, the magical deer from Spellbinders. This has been out for several years now, but I kind of like that it was so ornate and I thought it looked good with the sleigh. So again, look through your stash, see what you have. You may have different size deer or you may have some bigger reindeer. I did pull out an embossing folder. This is supposed to represent the roof, and the embossing folder that I had that which most closely resembled like a roof was the hand-drawn scallops from Spellbinders. After the fact, I found some paper kind of with scallops. I could have used that if I had found it earlier, but I do like the texture. And this is just supposed to be like the little roof piece over a door, just to give it some interest. And I had a wreath again from an ancient Tim die. This is called Wreath and Snowflake. It was just a nice big wreath that I could put on there just to decorate this page a little bit for Santa. And then when Santa's coming down the chimney, I went back to the fireplace pop-up and basically kind of did the same thing, except this time I decorated this exactly like the first fireplace, but now you can see Santa's boots. It's hard to make a move. If it's sitting up, they move around. It's sort of hard to do that when it's laying down this way, but that's the difference. I put the boots in there, and then I decorated this page with two of Karen's dies, and this is from that border set again. The lights from the Christmas Borders one, and then the stockings are from the Holiday Charms. So these are a little bigger stockings than what comes with the fireplace. So I decided to use those. And there's the little teddy bear that the girl was holding in bed, the little mouse holding in bed. So again, I had a fun time mixing and matching everything. Then this is another big mouse using his Santa outfit. So he was fun to make. So that was a pretty easy mouse to make. There's the big mouse in his Santa costume. The pack is from Tim. And I'm not very good at freehanding things. So I used this and I kind of had to modify it a little bit or move it around a little more than what it appears here. This is from the Woodland Santa. So if you have a bag from Santa somewhere from a Santa die, try that out. The die that I used, the pop-up die for this one, is the Twist Flower pop-up. And this is not a hard die to use, but I have to tell you, I think because I kept getting his foot caught up when I turned it, I didn't want this sitting up too high. I finally, just a hint, if the little mechanism here, the paper kept tearing. So finally, like the third time I put it together, I'm like, all right, I got some Tyvek from an old envelope, and I lined the back side of the paper with the Tyvek because I thought if the paper tears, the Tyvek won't. And that was this bottom portion here that kept tearing, and I think it was because of his foot. I finally got his foot positioned where it wouldn't get hung up. So as simple as this one looks, this guy was my most challenging one as far as not getting hung up on something. The ornaments on this are from the holiday charms. They were a good size, so I just added those to the paper. And then finally, because this talks about him having a little pipe, that's from the Tiny Accessories one. This little pipe fit my little mouse perfectly. And then on this page, I've got a fair amount going on this page. There's that Christmas tree. And that is using the older Christmas tree pop-up base plus the Christmas tree add-ons, new this year. And then I did put the ornaments on there. And I know it's sort of hard to see when it's on its side here. You can't really see those that well. There's the small mouse again, side view. The hat we talked about, but his outfit came from the Christmas accessories for the big mouse. I used the small pop-up box for him. So the small scenes bam box pop-up was the perfect size. So I just have to know to lay that down before I close it so he doesn't collide with the tree. Otherwise, he won't close. And on this side, this is an older Tim die again. This is Santa's pack. There's no way the small Santa, the small mouse, could put that on his back. So I just laid it over here on the floor. This is the Toyland colorized die. Again, I didn't stuff it full of gifts. I kept it fairly simple because there's a lot of layers to that. And I didn't want that to take away from the tree and my mouse. And then finally, the last page is that great photo fan pop-up. This is fast becoming one of my most favorite pop-up dies, and he was perfect, or it was perfect, to hold Santa and his reindeer. And again, I had to look for something that wasn't too big, wasn't too small. So I believe this is from last year from Tim, the reindeer sleigh. And I just arranged my reindeer. I did try this out on the temporary little one I have of the die on just copy paper, just put them on there to make sure they would all work. I did cut off one of the legs though, because to have a reindeer this close to Santa, it just didn't look right. So I cut off this one leg. You wouldn't have known that. And then that spaced out. That gave Santa a little distance from his first set of reindeer. And the moon, again, is that Moonlight, the big die in the set that we looked at earlier. So that is how I laid all my die cuts out, the ones that I used for the words and the verses. A little hint on that. Since I had laid this all out, I knew what was going to be on each page. And then I got out two of the nesting sets, the rectangles and the short rectangles from Karen Burniston. And I just die cut up some of the ones I thought would fit on these pages because I didn't want to guess, and I wanted this to be simple to be able to do these verses. So I cut these out and then I could lay them down. This one I don't have in front of me. Let's go back here. Let's see here. We'll look at this one. So I just laid this down. 1054 is the number of the die, so I could keep track of that since I used it from two different sets. And then I could measure this and say, okay, what's the measurement for that section? And then I wrote that down on my sheet here. So for this one, 3.5 by 2 1/4. So when I went to the computer, I could do the text box, type in my text, and here I've got all of those. So then when I was done, let's see if I can find this one real quick. I think it's this one, but we'll make it this one. So then I could lay this down. It's not the same one. We'll pretend. I could lay this down, and I did this on all my pages to make sure this is how I wanted it. So then when I went back, if I needed to make changes, I could. I could do it on my good paper, take out all the lines showing how big my box was, and then I was ready to go. So that made putting all those verses down, and trust me, I checked and double checked to make sure I had the right verse on the right page. When I put my pages in, I made sure they were upright and the front of my cover was upright. So I did take my time doing this. I didn't just rush through it, but I will spend more time figuring out the cover for my next pop-up book. So this is going to be my last video for the year. I'll be back in January after the beginning of the year. But I want to thank everyone who has been watching. We've got some people who I know have watched from the very beginning, and we have some new people who have started watching more recently. So thank you to all of you for watching this year. And for those of you who leave me a thumbs up, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And then for those that leave me comments, I am very grateful for those comments. It really makes my day to read what you're thinking. So thank you all for participating by watching, giving me a thumbs up, and commenting. So I want to wish you all a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas, and enjoy your celebration, however it is that you celebrate. And I will see you all again after the beginning of the year.